Hey, this is the third time I've tried to make this video for one reason or another. I'm just going to cut to the point. Musical influences. There's usually big names. There's usually, Brian Wilson, who just passed, was a huge one. People say Bob Dylan, or if you're more of a musician, people will say, Eddie Van Halen, or Stevie Ray Vaughan if you're a guitar player, or, maybe Elton John or Billy Joel if you're a pianist, keys, and there's the usual suspects. And when Brian Wilson passed, there was this big outpouring of love and appreciation, but also of grief and loss. For those people that had his music had really touched and moved. And I thought I had a personal moment of that yesterday when my wife sent me a screenshot from Facebook. And fortunately it wasn't so serious. It wasn't a passing, but it was an announcement that Ray Stevens had to undergo some medical procedure in the hospital. And he had to cancel his performances at his cabaret in Nashville, and he'll be at home recuperating. And, but when I saw that picture, like we do nowadays for people that are online, you see a picture of somebody come up in the news, you just jump to the conclusion. And so I had this, my heart kind of caught. I thought, oh no. And then I read, and well, okay, he's okay. He's 80 something, and when he goes, that will be a loss for me personally, for the world, but for me personally, selfishly speaking. I'm not sure any other person across my entire life has been more of an influence. My parents graduated high school in like 67. My mom liked the Beach Boys and the Beatles, lots of 50s, 60s oldies when I was a kid. My dad was really into Motown, liked the blues, some funk, soul type stuff. But he had this Ray Stevens record that we would listen to, and he had Ray Stevens cassettes. And when you're a kid in the 80s, you got 3 channels because you can't afford cable. Hee Haw's on, and we were not a big country music family. But let me see if this is still recording. Okay, excuse that, because last time the camera just stopped for whatever reason. So anyway, there was always a chance that Ray Stevens would be on. So you watched it for that. And I'm not going to get real deep into the details, but I grew up in a cult, for lack of a better term, even though it's an appropriate term. So you were restricted on what you had access to, what you could watch, things like that. But Ray Stevens was okay. And Ray Stevens was a believer. He was a Christian. He is a believer. He's a man of the Christian faith, a follower of Jesus. And on most of his albums, if not all of them, he usually has a song of some kind celebrating his faith. And so there were these little, like C.S. Lewis, I think, calls them like sunlight filtering through the leaves, that I was exposed to as a kid. And then in my 20s, I came to faith. Became a believer, and only since then have I appreciated just what he did in that. He's not out to beat people over the head with his faith, but he's not afraid to share it publicly, and he's not afraid to make the kind of music that he wants to make. And some people will just say that he's goofy and silly, and he is. His songs are silly, and goofy. He's got songs about, you know, a guy running naked around town, and you know, a kid sneaking a squirrel into church, and, you know, a guy making harassing, obscene phone calls to a woman. You know, the haircut song, and, you know, he saw Elvis in a UFO, and just, you know, the list goes on and on and on. And if you're familiar with this catalog, you know that there's so many songs that are just dumb, but they're not dumb for the sake of being dumb. Some of them are. Even his dumbest song, you know, there's a wit and a skill, both lyrically, which I was never a musical child. I grew up reading a lot. I never thought I had any kind of musical ability. Still probably don't. It wasn't until my 20s that I picked up an instrument and, you know, gave it a go, and I'm still on that journey. But words and lyrics have always been the thing that get me, more so than a catchy hook or a nice chord progression. And you know, it's the words, and he's got some of the most geniusly stupid, and I mean this in the best possible way, lyrics in his songs, and just brilliant. And you know, so that, you know, has been an inspiration to me as I'm attempt to write songs. You know, almost always it's the words that come first, and I'm always trying to say things the best way, and not being, you know, because you look at like Brad Paisley, and he's got these goofy songs, and, you know, they're like trying to be clever, you know, and they're fine. I don't have anything against it, you know, but it's like, it's just like, oh, he's real cute about trying to do these, you know. And this, I think there's several of these modern country songs that are like that. You know, it's like, look how clever, you know, look how clever I am in this silly song. And you know, Ray Stevens, in my opinion, was never that. You know, he might have just a perfect turn of phrase in a song, but it's just because it fits that song. It's not showing off how clever he is in his writing. You know, and some of the stuff is just kind of a throwaway reference, maybe, that, you know, you maybe don't even catch at first. But yeah, so I think I was born in the perfect generation to appreciate him. You know, born in the late 70s. You know, he came on the scene in the late 60s and had his run in the 80s and 90s, and then, you know, he had those videotapes of his music videos, and, you know, and then in the 90s he was in Branson, which I live about an hour and a half from Branson, and never, that was never my scene. Never got to see him in concert there, as much as I liked the guy. This is just something that never thought about doing. But you know, now my kids, I plays songs, you know, at home, and my kids like him, and we have these debates about what's our top 5 songs, and I'm glad that I've been able to share that and pass that along to them. Even if, you know, a song like Southern Air, which is one of my favorites Ray Stevens songs of all time, you know, they are not going to appreciate that song for what it is, because they do not know who Jerry Clower is, or Minnie Pearl. You know, they're not going to get the references that somebody from my generation or someone older than me would know. And which is, it's sad, but also, you know, in 20 or 30 years, pop music now, the kids aren't going to understand the references. So, I mean, it's just a nature, it's a nature of the beast of the medium. I know that. But they still appreciate it it's still a funny story even if you don't understand how funny it is, because you don't get who the flight attendant is or who the pilot is. you know, uh, but so yeah, so I just wanted to share this. I will try to include the screenshot if you are a fellow appreciator of Mr. Raymond Stevenson. Maybe you want to send a card, a get well card, or send them. I think I'm going to write something kind of like what I'm rambling on here. Maybe it's a little sad that a 50-year-old guy's writing a fan letter. But you know what? That guy has given me so many laughs and brightened my world in so many ways. Even if it's selfish, and even if I'm really only doing it for myself, I think maybe I will just send him something. He may not even read it. Might just be his management or whatever, but maybe I'll do that, and I'll try to include that screenshot. But yeah, and if you don't know who Ray Stevens is, if you were never exposed to that side of things, because he was more country adjacent, and maybe you just weren't exposed to him growing up, I would suggest that you check it out. I know Spotify is kind of the big evil now for reasons that I don't quite fully understand. Something about ripping people off. He's got an extensive library up on Spotify. I'm sure it's available elsewhere. Apple Music, not so much, for whatever reason. But I'm sure, and there's stuff on YouTube you can find. His old videos are up there, and people have been making animated versions of some of his videos, some of his songs that didn't get videos. So that's up there. But check it out. It'll bring a smile to your face, or it'll drive you crazy, like it does my wife. You like what you like. The heart wants what it wants. So anyway, this is just me kind of just sharing a little story about someone that's helped mold me into, if I can use the word artist, that seems not accurate, but I do what I can. Not well, but I do it anyway. And I wouldn't be the person that I am today without his influence on my life. So I just wanted to share that. And if you like Ray Stevens, maybe you didn't know. If you don't like Ray Stevens, take a listen. Maybe you will. Great, just a great artist. And he's got songs in almost every kind of genre. And not all of them are goofy. He did an album or two a few years ago of old standards, old old love songs, and like Tony Bennett would sing, from like the 40s and 50s, and it's really beautiful. His wife of 60 some years passed a few years ago, and he wrote a song that is one of the most devastatingly sad songs, but yet still has that sense of humor about it. And it's a song about the better half of him is gone, and just living life in that new reality. And I think it's called My Better Half Is Gone. I think that's what it's called. But find that song, listen to it if you want a tear to come to your eye. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough, and if you've made it this far, thank you. Do me a favor and listen to Ray Stevens and make the world a better place. This is Nug signing off. I'll catch you on the next one.